What's up, future shred lords? Welcome back. Death to the fingers. Hope you're doing okay. Wow, the world is just going nuts. Oh man, all at once. Like 2026 is going to be the shitstorm of all years. Man, there's so many things going to converge. If you're like enjoying the last remnants of normal life, enjoy yourself this holiday season, with Christmas and all the rest of that, or whatever you do with the family and all the rest of it, because we going down. Oh man, are we ever going down? It is just getting absolutely insane out there. And that's really the first point I want to talk about, is just being able to stop and smell the roses. Doing nothing is actually doing something. So sometimes you got to take a break from the internet, from playing music, making music, recording music, mixing it, whatever, and just do something else. I've been kind of messing around with some video games. It's nothing serious, but I'm enjoying myself, just kind of puttering away, just doing mindless stuff. You know what I mean? And it also helps break up the monotony, because I have other things on the go, which is the next point about legal stuff, but being able to just sort of sit back and be like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I'm just going to do nothing and just enjoy myself in the doing of nothing. That's incredibly important. Or go do something that, takes the edge off. Go have a beer, whatever. Go take yourself for lunch or whatever it is. Something like that. You know what I mean? Where you just kind of just go outside or whatever, have some sort of event where you just get to watch the world pass you by, or you can sit there on the computer and just get lost in your own little make-believe world. Not everybody likes video games, so there's a whole nother side of it, where you're still doing something, but it's so, it's like eating. Okay, that's pretty much, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 stuff, so no big deal, but too many people get so obsessed with work and productivity and all the rest of it that they miss a really important part of life. Also, it rejuvenates you, creatively speaking. You know what I mean? So even though I haven't been able to play guitar, I've been thinking a lot about how I would reorient. Like, here's the thing. I started to realize that by taking this big break, I'd be giving myself an opportunity to sort of rewire my brain, because I have to go back and start practicing things again. And some of the better ideas that I came up with before, I'll keep with. But there are new ones that I sort of figured out that'll be instantaneously usable. And so I want to basically jump on that. You know what I mean? And start mastering this information. And in doing so, I'll exponentially basically improve my guitar and music skills, because knowing these positions in reference to a system and whatnot, we're going to look at them on Thursday. I got a really great lesson coming up, but I have to make some visuals up and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that one. It's going to be killer. But this is kind of related to it. You know what I mean? This ability to sort of see in advance that you have an opportunity, even though in the moment it kind of sucks. My favorite activity in the entire world is playing guitar or making music and stuff like that, and I'm basically precluded from doing that. So, fuck. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I can use this opportunity to sort of reevaluate where I'm at, and then chart a new path that's even more efficient than the one I was before. Because here's the thing, when you keep doing it again every single day, over and over and over again, the truth is that you sort of get locked into these routines, these rituals, if you will, and it's really hard to break out of them. And sometimes doing nothing or being forced not to play or anything else like that can be the very thing that actually drives you forward, because you get a minute to sort of breathe and be like, well, when I do get back to playing, what can I do to sort of make my practice sessions more efficient? And if you're not thinking like that, then you're just not doing it right. You know what I mean? If you're not compartmentalizing this information in ways that lets it be usable in terms of like the cage system or 3 notes per string or whatever it is. Like if you're talking about the A-type chord, what other information goes with that? You're like, that's a second inversion major arpeggio at the mixolydian position on the low E string of the diatonic scale that you're playing in. If it was G, it'd be D major, the 10th fret. Boom, right? By moving up the 4th, I would get to the note, yes, you guessed it, G, a whole step down from A, the 12th fret on the A string. That makes it automatically an A-type chord, which means I can either build an A-type chord there or a C-type chord. Boom, this is what I'm talking about. Once you start to see the fretboard like this as branching possibilities, rather than just playing all of these chords one right after another, you're like, there's one there, there's one there. You know what I mean? Then you can start to stack them in unconventional ways. And the best way to do it, honestly, is to play music that you can figure out the chord progression, like it's got 4 chords or 5 chords or whatever it is, or 4 chords for the verse and then another 4 or 5 chords or whatever it is for the chorus. And you start based around an idea like the E-type chord that's rooted there, right? So you're going to base all of your ideas, major and minor, if you will, based off that scale. You'd be using the classical method. So every time it happens on the A string, you're going to get an A-type chord or C-type chord. Anytime the note ends up on the D string, you're going to get a D-type chord, which is inherent to both the C and, or you could do a G-type chord. I guess you could say that one's in there for sure. The E-type chord and the G-type chord would also be viable in the low E string situation. And that's what I'm talking about. Now, if they're like, okay, play like a 2, 5, 6, 1 in the key of D major, you'd move up to D major 10th fret and then sort of base all of your moves off there. Move up a whole step on the low E string to get to the 2 chord. Jump up a 4th to get to the 5 chord, move up a whole step from there, or jump back, like a major 3rd to get the 6th degree, and so on and so forth, right? So, I mean, that's kind of the really important information, if you will, that you have to start to assimilate. And a lot of times taking a break will let you sort of get enough breathing room, if you will, to sort of have this kind of reflection to be like, yeah, I should do that. Instead of just being like, it's 3 notes per string. It's like, it's 3 notes per string factored into like this scale position, which is anchored around a diatonic scale degree, right? So if you're talking about the 3rd degree of the melodic minor, well, that's got a whole bunch of different conditions and sort of exceptions and all the rest of that stuff that goes with it. If you're talking about the Phrygian mode, the 3rd degree of a major scale, that's the new diatonic key, the major scale, right? Instead of the melodic minor, you might be like the harmonic minor. What's the 3rd degree? How does that work? Well, that works well with the diatonic scales. And then all of a sudden you start to organize this more sort of global information so that it's more usable. And you can start to exploit it, of course. But again, not taking breaks can immediately impair that situation because you don't take any time to sort of reflect on what you're doing. You just kind of be like, I got to get my head down. I got to practice a lot. And that just ultimately can hurt you in the long run, if you will, because you need to take a break once in a while and be like, okay, well, what am I doing? And what do I want to do? And these types of questions. And then eventually that's always going on. And so you're constantly looking for improvements, ways to shave off just a couple more seconds from your best time. You know what I mean? Or lift a few more pounds. Just play that scale more confidently. Do that sweep more efficiently and fluidly and all the rest of it. So that's a big one. A friend of mine their band is doing pretty good, and I don't want to say anything about it because I don't want to jinx it, if you will. And honestly, I don't know if it's significant enough to really blast out on the internet, and I wouldn't want to embarrass them or whatever else. But the fact of the matter is they are getting interest from labels and stuff, and one of them actually sent them a contract. They're like, here, we want to work with you. Just sign this, and we'll get going. He's like, well, what do you think? And I'm just like, listen, man, if you can't read that contract and understand it for yourself, what that means, legally speaking, okay, and I mean that for real, you, not a lawyer, not somebody you hire to interpret it for you. If you do not understand it, you should not be signing any kind of legal documents, no matter what. So... and it doesn't matter if it's with respect to music or anything else. If you don't understand the rules of what it is that you're getting into, you might want to take serious pause, because that can lead you to a disastrous position that cannot be rectified easily and is really going to cause a serious problem in your life. So it sounds cool because it's like, yeah, man, I'm going to be a signed record artist or whatever it is, professional, musician or whatever. But the reality is you're an indentured slave, and they drain you dry until you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. And there's a whole bunch of consequences there. So, you know what I mean? You got to take it upon yourself to be like, I have to educate myself about what this stuff means. That means tracking down information on the internet about how to understand contracts and what this stuff means. What is perpetual royalties? What is a royalty? How to sort of break down the terms and conditions of a legal contract and all the rest of that. And that takes years of sort of casual, dabbling, if you will. But that's just it. That's got to be job number one right there. Start training yourself to be able to recognize the pitfalls, because once they happen, you're screwed. Once you sign on that dotted line, they have you by the short and curlies, and that's it. It's game over. And believe you, it's like, honestly, the industry is totally predatory. They do not care about you as a human being at all. You are completely and utterly insignificant to them. Okay, you're just a product, a number on a spreadsheet that tours around. And at first it's really cool and stuff like that, and you're living the life and whatnot. And sometimes it can be actually profitable, but then, of course, the big bad, party pooper sweeps in, if you will, and just sort of ruins everything, because you're like, well, you're $2 million in debt to the record company. So even though you made $500,000, you owe us 450,000, 450, yeah, I guess 400,000, 450,000, whatever. You're like, oh, okay. I just toured for 18 months and I'm left with 50 grand, and I still have like all these, the debts basically that piled up over the last 18 months that I'm got to take care of now, which now leaves you with like 6 grand. Don't spend it all at once, which is also supposed to serve as some sort of nest egg for you to be able to write the next album and all the rest of the stuff. And that's why you see bands burn out. There's just the business aspect of it is really, really nasty now, unfortunately, because I don't know. Don't ask. I don't ask questions. My philosophy is do it on your own. You'll always have ultimate control, and you can structure your business to your own advantage for tax breaks and everything like that usually go to the record company, which is how they make a lot of money. Not to mention exclusivity and whatnot. So you can sign the contracts and be involved with the companies and corporations and causes, if you will, that you're interested in and that actually resonate with you on a conscious level, rather than just being hoarded out You know what I mean? Like I've seen like a whole bunch of interviews now with rock stars, and they're like, at first we were just like, we just want to make music and tour, connect with the fans and everything. And of course, within a year when they're blowing up, they're like on every magazine cover, and they're all everywhere at once. You know what I mean? This phenomenon, I guess you could say. And that's just it. It's horrible for the band. It breaks up the band because there's this whole new dynamic of demand being put upon these individuals, where they're just like, we just want to play music and chill out, bro. Like, calm down. We don't want to be doing the radio interview where we answer the same, 7 questions every single day for like 8 months. Does that sound fun? No. I don't care how much attention's being showered on you. That just sounds horrendous. Right? So, I mean, bottom line is that you got to know what you're getting into, and you have to be able to make those decisions for yourself, because guess what? Getting somebody else to do that for you, like read it, and then all of a sudden leave out some key piece of information like, whoops, sorry. You'll realize quickly there's nothing you can do, and you're still stuck. The only person you can rely on is yourself. So either become the master of the law, and you should do that anyways, because then you can at least demand of these people to be like, I'll write up our contract. You can make slight alterations, but the language will be in plain English and not legalese. And then you have some bartering power, if you will, to actually make, demands upon the contract. If they're really serious, it's not just about money. It's consideration and whatnot, and convenience. You'd sacrifice money if you thought that, this was an ironclad agreement that was going to pay dividends in the long run. You know what I mean? Like, you have peace of mind, rather than being like, well, who knows if the record company goes under or whatever situations happen there. I don't know. That's what I mean. Being your own autonomous sort of entrepreneur as far as music is concerned gives you so much more power. You can license the lyrics for lyric books, and just tie that in with artwork, sort of make it into a comic kind of situation. There's licensing opportunities like Kiss does. There's, personal visits or whatever, appearances. I mean, it's pretty crazy that celebrities are already famous, and then all of a sudden, just to show up somewhere, they get paid $75,000 just to show up to a club. I'm just like, what? Yeah, okay, sure. One time I'll show up to the club for $75K. Let's do it. We'll have a few drinks, and we'll go out on the dance floor, and we'll be like, this is awesome. And then I'll walk out with $75K, and that's the end of that. One night's work done. I think I can handle it. You know what I mean? So, to me, the road of the entrepreneur is much more steep. Obviously, it's way more labor intensive, but if you spread it out over a long period of time, it's no big deal. And honestly, the biggest hurdle is just getting your artistic vision onto tape in a recorded situation, and then mixed down and presented to the public in a way that's it's palatable to a wide audience. If you can do that, you can do incredibly well for yourself. That one video game, Silk Song, it broke all the records and stuff just because it was $20. So if you made 12 songs of music that was about 45 minutes long, and you charged $11.99, you'd probably do pretty damn good. Just 100,000 people, that's $1 million or whatever. And selling, getting 100,000 downloads or whatever it is, may not be completely unrealistic. And honestly, if you even got into the hundreds of thousands, I think most people would be like, yeah, this is awesome, right? And if you set it up right, your life is now being channeled through some sort of LLC. So now you can channel all of your life expenses through this corporate entity and reduce your taxable income by way of just living. So instead of you buying food and paying taxes and taking an immediate loss, now it becomes a taxable sort of, or at least a deductible amount from your taxes on the taxable amount, because it goes through this corporate entity. And I've seen some people do this, and actually it makes a lot of sense. They beat the tax man, if you will, legally speaking, by incorporating and then running their entire life through this LLC, this private LLC. And in doing so, they get all of these crazy tax breaks. Right? And they barely pay any taxes, if they pay any taxes at all. Right? And then with some shrewd investments, you'd be having a pretty decent residual income. I mean, if you're making, say, $6,000 to $7,000 a month in income, and you already had a place built, you know, it wasn't glamorous or anything like that, $10 million, but I mean, you know, a nice place, $500,000 doing your own construction and doing some of the work yourself would yield a pretty damn nice place, right? 2,000 square foot or so. Just keeping that in mind, you know what I mean? If you're making 6 to 7K and existing there, well, are you really hurting? You know, like you're probably going to expend like 2,500, maybe 3,000 on just the standard expenses, and the rest just goes back into it. And that's just it. You can reinvest into your own business and expand from there, which creates, again, more tax loopholes. Build an outhouse, but instead of it becoming this deemed one thing, you can rename it under the tax laws as this other thing, a home office. And now all of a sudden, instead of you paying taxes for it, everything that you paid to get the thing built and installed and all the permits and everything become a tax write-off. And all of a sudden you're getting money back from the government. Or you pay no tax at all. And you're like, it worked out. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's the thing. Knowing the law, knowing the rules of the game, knowing how to navigate these shark-infested waters, and sort of having at least the bare minimum, the entrepreneurial spirit to be like, I kind of want to do it on my own. I don't know everything there is to know. I'm never going to be an expert in all of it. But I have this deep desire to want to figure it out on my own terms and just get it done. And that right there is 9/10 of the battle, right? And then all you have to do is just start charting it out by consuming a video once every 2 or 3 days on, legal topics with respect to music, whether it's a white paper, I should say, or a magazine article or some sort of legal periodical, or start watching a video that talks about this really important book, even though any books that were written that are probably still famous are so hilariously outdated considering the new model, so it's almost pointless. You're talking about SEO, you're talking about social media campaigns, and if you want to do that stuff, I don't know if I would be overly successful. Honestly, I think just running social media campaigns to get an email list going so that you could communicate with your customers directly would probably be far better than trying to just put your music out there. Just use the music as like a reel-in funnel, if you will, to get people to actually be like, yeah, send me a newsletter on what's going on, and blah, 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 and build up your community that way. Avoid things like Patreon and all the rest of that stuff. I never go to people's Patreon pages ever or anything like that. If you have a website, great. And then that's where I would start too, is building up your own website. Start off with just the bare bones stuff. It plays music. It lets people download music and conduct transactions to the point where you can start hosting it on your own. Build your own computer. They can act as a server with decent software that allow you to basically encrypt it to process payments and stuff like that through PayPal, through credit cards or whatever it is. See what that would take, what it entails, get an account, who's worthwhile going with on the internet and stuff like that. What are the service fees involved? Gauge your own situation, have a Bandcamp one or something like that, and then start migrating towards your own sort of independent vehicle. And that's how it works. Instead of expecting someone else to do it for you, which seems to be the prevalent sort of, mentality with a lot of things in 2025. Be the person that is like, nah, I got to do it myself. I got to figure out most of this stuff for myself. And once you do, believe you me, when the crisis situation hits, you're ready for it. You're ready for it and you just deal with it. And it's not a crisis. It's just done. But when you haven't actually dealt with it, you're on the telephone and it's like, oh, I had to spend 2 weeks or a month or whatever trying to sort the situation out. And I got stiffed on a whole bunch of money and blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? That's the difference right there. Yeah, the other one takes a little bit longer and a year or two longer to really implement fully, comparably to somebody being like, yeah, just do it for me. But the difference is in that 2-year period, you've accrued all this important and essential information and knowledge about how to administrate this important aspect to your website, processing payments. You know what I mean? And then done. So I mean, I get it. Most people are adverse to sort of like taking on new little tasks and stuff, but that's just it. You got to start by just diversifying. You're playing music, then you're kind of playing and recording music, then you're playing, recording music and mixing it. Then you're like, I think I want to mess around by doing some graphic design. That leads from, like Photoshop into Illustrator. And you're like, okay, how do I use this? And then from there, you're into video editing. And from there, you're doing other stuff, working on I've mastered how to use a whole slew of different types of little programs and stuff that are pretty esoteric. But that's just it. You know what I mean? Once you master the skill of learning, or at least keep relevant with it, picking up these new skills takes nothing. And you are the ultimate sort of like benefactor to it. So keep that in mind. Never expect anything. Expect yourself to put in the work necessary to elevate to a point to getting noticed or actually making money. And then just work quietly, humbly, and sort of, diligently in the background until that happens. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It's not a reflection of how good or bad or anything else it is. It's just a question of whether you really cultivated the opportunity and you invested enough time to be able to seize upon it when it presented itself. A lot of people can't say that. You get one chance when the guy's like, I'm prepared to sign you to $1 million contract. But at the end of the day, 6 months later, you're like, okay, well, he's doing a distribution deal where he takes a cut, but we're getting paid too. You see what I mean? There's no money transfer. There's no binding financial obligation. He puts up his own money. He does the distribution, and then he takes his cut, and then he sends us a check. And if there's a problem, we just take him to court, and then it's the contractual stuff, and that's usually pretty easy to win. See what I'm getting at? Instead of you being at the disadvantage, put yourself at the advantage. Sun Tzu, know yourself, know your enemy, and the outcome of every battle is assured. Okay? So, that's my video. I know it's a little helter-skelter. We'll be back to playing very soon. My finger's doing so much better, but I can still feel it's lingering. It's lingering. I think it'll be done by like the end of next week. I'm really hoping it is. It feels pretty good right now. And then we can get back to that nonsense. But in the interim, I got a really great lesson on Thursday, so I'll see you then. Catch you in the next one.